All right. Good evening, LinkedIn. Dave Wilson of the Ringer Hire Show. Hey, listen, tonight I got a great guest here, a colleague of mine, Denis Cela. How you doing, Denis?
I'm doing well, Dave. How you doing?
Doing great. He is with LGI Consulting and leadership coach, trainer, speaker, and I'm going to let Denis talk in a little bit. But for right now, we'll be right back as soon as I get this video, and I'm going to find it, Denis. And look at that, right now on cue. Here it is. I still love that thing.
That's pretty cool.
It is. You know, Denis, I want to thanks for coming on. And the reason I reached out to you is I knew you're really, this is one of your favorite subjects because this is what you consult with, and that's about leadership. And I want to take this time, if you could take just to introduce yourself and what you do, Denis.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave. Pleasure to be here with you again. Again, Denis Cela. I consider myself a developing leader, first of all, right? So it's something that I continuously look for ways to improve and see how I can always be a better leader by learning and being able to apply what it is that I learned. So I've been professionally, I've been in a 19-year career now in the supply chain world, working for some large corporations, Fortune 500s, and have been blessed and am currently blessed as a director of operations for NFI as well, to have had some great mentors and great leaders that have kind of walked me through and talked to me, and not just talked, but showed me what leadership is all about. And through that quest, right, leadership became a very critical point in my career, in my life. And it was something that I quickly realized that leading and dealing with people was something that was applicable in every single industry, regardless of whether it was a service, supply chain, whatever you got, right? You're always going to work with people. You're always going to lead people. You're always going to get results through people, right? So leadership became this main focus in my career, and I started investing on myself and figuring out ways of how I could get better at it and how I can learn. And that's where this idea of LGI, right, which stands for Learn, Grow, Influence, kind of came along. And long story short, got a Maxwell leadership certification, spent some time with John Maxwell down in Orlando, Florida.
Nice.
Went through their leadership certification, coaching, and training. And I do some coaching, do some leadership training as well for frontline leaders with LGI Consulting. So that's kind of how leadership came about through my career, and most importantly, also through the various jobs that I've done.
No, I love it. And I noticed, when I asked you about to do the subject of leadership versus retention, you could even say retention versus leadership. I like what I read on your website. And the first thing you said on there was, I really like this. We believe that engaged people are the greatest asset in an organization. We are the culture champions. We're the people of value who value people. I had to read it a couple of times. I love reading stuff like that because I was like, wow, we are the culture champions. We're the people of value who value people.
Yeah, I think, again, at the end of the day, right, you got the whole AI revolution taking place right now, right, and everything kind of going through, but people are always going to be there, right, whether on the front lines, whether behind the scenes, you're always going to be working with people, unless you're strictly you're a individual performer, right, and you're just kind of simply working on your own, even though at some point somebody's going to communicate a goal to you and you're going to have to kind of execute to it, right? So the ability to first not realize, not forget, right, that regardless of the KPIs, the results, and everything
Yep.
that we need to provide and offer that are expected of us in any organization, right, we're dealing with people. So I think
Right.
the sooner we can realize as leader that, as leaders, that we're dealing with people and be able to offer value to those people and keep that to our forefront at every given point, they're not just numbers anymore. Right now, we can inject that human element, if you will, to our interaction.
Perfect.
And be able to create that trust and that engagement and kind of come through, right? And when we talk about retention and leadership, I think those two go hand in hand, right? So
Definitely.
there's a tight connection in there. But yeah, when we put that mission statement on our website, the
Love
idea
it.
there was that, in a nutshell, at LGI, all we're trying to do, right, is bridge the gap, serve
Right.
as that bridge, if you will, to get from the gap of where you want to be, where you are, to where you want to be, right? We just want to kind of come in that middle and be able to help you get to where you want to go.
Dennis, if you had to say in leadership and in any type of positions, entry level, middle management, what do you think that employees are looking for when you say leadership, in your opinion, like all years of experience? Like, what am I looking for in a leader? Like when I'm at work, what do you think employees want that really stands out to them about being a leader?
Well, if we kind of take that back, right? So the employees, obviously, within an organization, right, you have
Right.
different levels of leadership, right? You have different seniorities and so forth. You have your frontline leaders, you have your leads, whatever you might have, and then you have your hourly employees or whatever they are, right? And I think that sense of direction, that trust, that support,
Right.
and the why. Why am I here every day, right? So at the end of the day, when somebody comes in, puts their application in, goes through the interview process,
Right.
needing that paycheck, right? They're coming in and they're giving the organization an opportunity, right? They're giving that organization a chance to say, okay, let me see what this group is, what it's going to do for me, right?
Right.
And then as they come in, I think it's important to the employee that they know, okay, so what is expected of me? What am I supposed to do
I like the expectations.
day out, right? So have those clear expectations, have that vision, and hey, what is our why? What do we do in here every day, right? There might be days where I'm going to spend 10, 12 hours in this building or in this organization, right? What is it? What's the bigger picture that we're, I'm kind of paint the picture for me. So if I, and that applies to every single level, Dave, right? As
Right.
an employee, that employee is going to report to a leader, where that leader's got the same expectations. What is
Yep.
what are the expectations of that leader? So I look at it as this big puzzle that everybody is connected to it. So regardless of what level you are, right, you need to understand where you're going after,
Right.
what are you doing, and then you get into the trust and do all the other things that are extremely important, right? But if you come in on day one and the first thing is there trust in this organization? To me, that would mean that you were bruised in your past from wherever you came from, right?
Where
To
you came
where
from. Right.
trust, it shouldn't be a given, but it's something that gets developed through relationship and so forth.
No, I like that. The way you said that is because it's not always about the money. I don't think it's not always about that. It's always about management. Like people leave jobs because of, bad management. We listen to reviews, and I've said numerous times, and I'm sure you agree that reviews are usually always negative. But sometimes they can show a pattern, on online reviews, especially. And I get that, but I always look at them and I'm like, all right, well, when you've got 10 things about management, I'm always wondering, okay, is there a problem there? Why they're leaving like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and absolutely. And I tell you what, we saw a lot of it, right? If you were to kind of peel back a little bit, some of the key words in there were the great resignation, right? So we had the great resignation come out through COVID, right?
Yep.
Then we had the quiet quitters and so forth, right? So we had some of these cliche words that have come on, but at the end of the day, I joined the workforce out of college, right? In 2005 down in Mount Crawford, Virginia. I had the opportunity to start working for Walmart in the supply chain world. And straight out of college, I was given a title.
Right.
I was an area manager within this 1,000,000 square foot warehouse, right? And within that square foot, we had about 800 employees humming 24/7. But I said I was given a title. I really
Right.
didn't have any leadership skills, right? I came straight out of college. I had gotten a piece of paper that said I graduated. I checked all the boxes that university was offering at the time, and now I'm a leader. And this
Yep.
was my upcoming, right? So if you look at Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, right? That's your position. That's your entry level when you can come in, right? So at this level, all I have is a title. When I'd walk
Right.
into that building, to the very left, there was a little sliding door in there that you'd put your name over, and it said Denis Cela, manager, is in the building or is out, right? So that was kind of
Right.
like my, man, I got a title and I'm good. And when we look at the relationship or the connection between between leadership at that level, Dave, and how that works with culture and retention, and I'm talking
Right.
2005, right? So this is pre-pandemic and all that good stuff. But the point I'm trying to make is that leadership and retention have gone hand in hand and will always go in hand, right? When it comes to turnover or creating a good culture. So at that level, all I had was a title, and people followed me because they had to, right?
Right.
I was the boss. I would come in and I'll tell you what to do. You have to do this. You have to do that. You have to do that. So the only reason people followed me at that level was because they had to, right? I was the
Right.
boss, I was the
That makes sense.
manager, I was the whatever. So I think as leaders, sometimes we all get that opportunity, just like I was given that opportunity through Walmart, right? To come in
Right.
and I was given a title, but through some great mentors, I was kind of got this pat on the back saying, hey, listen, you don't want to dwell too long at that at that level, because you'll get results because people have to. My way or
Right.
the highway. I'm telling you what you need to do. Go ahead and get it done.
I like that.
But those results though are going to be short-lived, right? So at that level, your results are going to be short-lived because people are not following you because they want to, or you build a relationship with you. They just are following you because they have to. Once they clock out, they just want to run away from you, right? And the
Right.
moment somebody says something, they're going to write it on that review and so forth. That's why leadership and retention, right? So if your only leadership style is a level 1 positional, right, to where you just kind of get your badge or you got your vest or you got something, right, and that's all you kind of lead through, your retention is always going to be higher. You're never going to have any creative ideas from your people, right? Or no, I'm sorry, not retention. Your turnover is going to be higher, right? So your retention is going to be low, right? Because you're just going to keep churning these people.
Right.
But this mentor of mine kind of knocked me on the shoulder, right? Gave me this book and said, hey, here, read a little bit about where you are and where you want to be. So the next level, right, was called the permission level. Here, people now are following you because they want to. At this level, you've spent a little bit of time and you've built some relationship with the people. You've gotten to know their name. You care about them a little bit, right? And you're kind of bringing them in the process of decision making. So now these folks are coming in and they're understanding where we're going, why we're going now. So now your retention will start improving. Your turnover.
Do you think you can teach that, Dennis? Like when you have your employees, like when you have something like what you just said, I like how you said it. Can that be taught, or is that just something that comes natural sometimes, you think?
So I honestly think, Dave, is the hardest person that you will ever lead. The hardest person that you will ever lead is yourself, right? You as a leader,
on that one. I like that.
You can teach a lot to the employees, right? So you can take this book and break it down, put it on a cool PowerPoint presentation. But if you, as a leader that is responsible for these people, are not aware of the level where you're at, and most importantly, right, are not developing yourself, or are not adding tools to your toolbox, right, so that you can get to the next level and so forth, or investing in your people, right, by getting to know them, by building trust, by building relationships, by providing tools, by removing roadblocks for them. If you're not doing that for them and all you're doing is teaching them and showing them a cool PowerPoint presentation, that big disconnect there is going to create a bigger gap. And then it's going to be, well, we had a great tool that we provided. Why is our retention not getting better? So again, it goes back to, as a leader, we need to pull that mirror up and look at ourselves and say, hey, what am I doing? Where am I at? And what do I need to improve on? And to your point, the people will tell you, whether through a review or whether just by ignoring you when you go by them, by not saying hi because you don't know their name, right? Or by not making eye contact, or by trying to avoid you as you're going their way. Those are some of the signals. You really don't need a whole lot survey to be done to know where you stand, right? So, but those are, I think, Dave, those are the critical misses that frontline leaders or any leaders, I guess, at every level miss at points, right? By not being aware of, okay, something's going on in here. What can I do to better, build that relationship with this individual and so forth, and then invest into that process so that I can build on from there.
Well, the last time we talked, I remember you were saying how, when you go to work and you're out there with that meeting in the morning with your team, and, you get to know your people so well that what's going on in their lives even sometimes, because they have so many things going on between, let's face it, the shifts that people work nowadays are different. Demands are different. The hours you work are different, mandatory overtime, all this. But if you know that's something going on, you even said, I think that's what like invest in your people or emotional intelligence. What's going on in their life, and that'll go a long way besides ignoring it. When you know what's going on, I think that's where some leaders need a little bit of extra training or something.
No, I think very, very critical. And again, it goes back to, in any organization, right? So if there's something going on with your culture, if something's going on through, you always want to look at, the famous saying from John Maxwell, right? Everything falls and rises in leadership.
Yep, I agree.
But that's it. At the end of the day, everything falls and rises in leadership, right? So if something's not going through, the quicker you as a leader can create that awareness and say, whoop, something's going on. This team is not performing like it should, right? So have I made the expectations clear, right? Yep. We just embarked on a new project, right? So we're starting a new project. I, as a leader in my head, have a clear vision on what needs to be accomplished, but have I communicated that clearly, simply, and in a detailed manner to my team so that they can grasp it and they can execute it? And if not, me just repeating that over and over and over is not going to yield me any different results, right? So when those results are not coming, we as leaders need to come through and say, okay, hold up a second now. Let me try a different way. Let me maybe demonstrate this. Let me go to the floor level. Let me go through and walk through so I can. Now, once you've gone through all of those, right, the idea is that you never want to lower your expectation. The expectations from the company and the organization should always be high, right? We accept nothing but excellence, but we got to ensure that we're providing folks the tools, we're providing folks the resources, we're providing them the training, the education to get those high expectations that we get. And that means us as leaders getting some coaching and mentoring, the employees on the floor or whatever level they might be, getting that coaching and mentorship so that everybody is in sync, going towards the same goal.
Yeah, and that's what I like when you said that too about mentorship. I had a show the other night, and I liked that word because I really feel that some of the especially new supervisors or middle managers that have been in it for a while, I think you always need training. I always like learning. And I don't think if you're not learning, something's wrong, because I'm sure even you're always like, okay, what did I do wrong here? I've second guessed myself. Did I make the right decisions? And I don't think there's a right way to measure that in a way, but if people would have those mentors, I love that word. And just the idea, we did that in the 90s. That was my person that I went to, that the guy had 30 years in the manufacturing. You always went to him, and asked for advice, because somebody that's been through it, that's evolved, they can really help you out.
Yeah. And again, Dave, I think too, it's got to be on the individual, right? So sometimes some leaders see that and some folks don't see it. Some folks are going to continuously stay on that level one, on that position, and saying, man, I made management. I got me this cool vest. It says I'm manager right here. It's got my name. And guess what? I'm going to tell people what to do. And you might soon find out, right, that this individual was a great unloader. They were a great, service technician. They were a great salesperson, right? They had all those skills, but maybe leadership is not their portion, right? Through those observations, and you're going to need to sit down and say, hey, this individual is not there because they're my way or the highway. We've invested, we've given them tools, we've given them training, but just because somebody was a great doer doesn't necessarily make them transform them into a good leader, or a great leader people. But it is our job as leaders to invest in them, right? Give them the opportunities, give them the tools, and then have that candid feedback, right? And provide them the timely feedback of where they stand and where they need to be.
I like how you say that, the investment, the tools, because everybody needs them. Listen, I still need them. If you're not provided the tools, why do you think sometimes, I know with retention and and with the leadership too, is why don't leaders like to have that tough conversations? What's missing there? Like, why, besides being nervous? Listen,
Yep.
I've always told people, if you enjoy to fire somebody, something's wrong with you. I mean,
Yep.
if you enjoy that, I think that I like to just learn. And I don't, when I first became a manager, oh yeah, wow, I was that person, wow, you can terminate. You can't always do those kind of things.
Yep. No, and I think again, Dave, I think feedback, right? Evaluation, giving folks the correct information timely of where they stand and where they're not. Oftentimes, right, our system's kind of geared at times to where folks wait for that annual review
Yep.
to just kind of like vomit on people, right? You've done this or you've done that, and catch the person by surprise. And I think that's the lowest opportunity or the lowest kind of feedback that you can give somebody, right? So, but us as human beings, all right, we're especially once you build a little bit of a relationship with a, let's go back to the folks on the floor. Now we've built that relationship. They want to follow us, right? Now we know that if we go in and give them some feedback about things that they're not doing right, that might put us in a, are they going to like me anymore? Or are they not going to like me? Especially with frontline leaders, right? Sometimes they might look at that and say, well, that's going to bruise the relationship. So feedback, another great book that I cannot recommend enough is Radical Candor by Kim Scott.
Okay.
Radical Candor. And it is so simply explained as to how we as people deal with feedback, right? And in a nutshell, to answer your question as far as how do we get to that point, right? So first of all, if we're sitting somebody down and giving them the feedback that, hey, this position is not for you, and that's catching them a surprise, it is we failed as leaders. We failed that individual. We failed by not giving them the timely feedback, giving them the tools and giving them the help and giving them the resources to get where they need to be. If that's the first time that they heard at a review that they weren't performing well, we failed them by not giving them that timely feedback, right? So Kim Scott on this book kind of separates feedback as, hey, the ability to care personally a lot, right? So to care a lot, but at the same time to be able to challenge. So how can you mix these two together, right? I care about you, Dave, but I also want to be able to challenge you. Oftentimes, we care too much about the person and we don't want to challenge them. So we just kind of lead them along and say, you know what, you're doing okay. You're doing okay. And then in our minds or in our gut, we know that, man, they didn't execute that last project to our expectations. They barely met the minimum expectation. But when we have that opportunity to give them the feedback, we say, well, you're doing all right. So we're kind of leading them astray. Second piece is another thing that we might do as leaders. We might sit to look at the person in the eye and say, you're doing great. And then I'll come right to you, backstab them and say, you know what, that person's doing this and that. So everything that I should have told that individual, I'm not telling that individual face to face, but I'm speaking to somebody else behind their back. That does nothing to help that individual improve and get better. The other thing is to where I don't care about you at all. All I look at the bottom is I see that the numbers didn't come in. I don't care that you just had a baby and you might have not had sleep for the last 2 days. I just look at those numbers and I say, hey, you do this again, you're fired. That's a form of leadership, and that's a form of feedback as well. Her sweet point was you got to be able to kind of see where, hey, Johnny, I know you had a baby. I know you're going through we still got goals that we need to meet. You did not meet the goal that we needed. So as I provide you a little more time to take care of what you got going on at home, I expect that you meet this goal here because this is what we got to, so something along those lines, right? To where you're caring, but at the same time, you're challenging directly. So
because I like how you said that. The words are coming right out because it's everything you were just talking about. It brings memories back for me because I think, I started out right out of the military in '87 and then became a manager right into the paper industry where my parents worked. And wow, you were thrown in there with unions and it was like I was 20 some years old and I'm like, wow, this was tough. This was not easy to do this, but I learned a lot by making the mistakes. I mean, stuff that you said, I've been there and I'm like, thank God I've had a couple great leaders that will sit down with you. And I believe if they come to you, like we talk about open door policies, what is a really good open door policy? Because they should not be afraid to come into you, Dennis, as a leader and say, hey, listen, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know how to do a meeting with somebody and write them up. You know what I mean? When they first start out.
Yep. And then that's the beauty of that trust and relationship, right? So once you move from I'm just a boss and you're going to do what I do, now you start investing in people, right? Now you create that, hey, I'm here for you. And you take that a step further, right? You have some one-on-ones, you get to know what their aspirations are, where, you know, what their goals are, where do they want to be. And as projects and opportunities come along, because you had that one-on-one with them 2 or 3 months ago, you're trying to put tools and resources in front of them that are going to help them propel. Now you've built trust. Now you've built that element of care, right? That I'm not here just to be here, but this, you know, my boss gave me some feedback. They care about me, right? They care about me. They're giving me the feedback. They gave me the opportunity to get better. And not just that, but they're also giving me a shot at this project to work on. At the end of the day, when you look at turnover or retention, right? So the importance of it, not just culturally, right, but even financially. So it takes about $10,000, right? Every time an employee vacates a place, right? When you look at your onboarding costs and your recruiting costs, right? Just the indirect or the direct cost that you can put a number to, it's about $10,000. Then you got the other aspect to it, your loss of productivity. You got all these other things that kind of fall into the bottom that, you know, are potentially some sort of customer service disruption, right? That you cannot really, you know, from a sales point of view, you can take that number and exponentially put it through the roof. So there's a lot of, not just the time and energy that it takes to replace that knowledge, right? But financially, there's a big aspect into it. That's why us as leaders need to continually look for ways to develop ourselves.
It is. Jasmine says, great points. Thanks, Jasmine. She's on the show here.
Thank you, Jasmine.
I saw this one, and I like this here. We don't achieve greatness alone, and to truly leave a mark, we must inspire greatness in others. And it comes back when I read that all the time. It's almost like what you're saying there is, it's not just about me. You know, it's about that team and how important, how do you get that message to your team so they can really sit there and say, wow, Dennis is a great, you know, manager. I really like Dennis, working with him. I'll do anything. But by showing people this, do you think that attracts candidate or employees to that leader by showing them just these simple things?
Yeah, so it naturally, I think it does, right? And it has to be a genuine show of careness, right? It has to be a, hey, I'm truly here to walk you through the process, right? So whatever that might be, I think it does absolutely, right? If they're seeing the leader out there leading, caring about them, right? Trust is being built, relationships are being built. I'm challenging them. Right. So now we're tossing, you know, challenges to continue to get better, continuous improvement. I'm asking them to bring ideas to the table, right, through this one-on-one observations and so forth. So now they're participating. Now they have a seat at the table. They're not just being told, here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Now they're bringing in their ideas, right? Their ideas are coming into place. And absolutely, right. So if you think about it, those ingredients coming together will make for that place to where I'm going to go in and tell my buddy over the weekend that I was working with to say, hey, this place where I'm working at, they have high expectations of you. They want you to do the job, not just right, but they want you to do the job very right and excellent. But they'll listen to you. They'll challenge you. They'll provide you tools. They'll provide you resources. You can ask questions. You can challenge. I think once you create that platform and that environment and you're truly committed to it, right? You're not just doing it before the heavy season started, and then when heavy season comes in, we become a different person, right? Because people quickly buy into it, right? But if you're consistent with it, and that's what you expect out of your team, and most importantly, that's what you expect and you exhibit out of yourself, then yes, you'll attract exactly what you said, Dave.
What you said, I heard you mentioned before. How important do you think that some leaders, how it affects retention, how it can affect it, is one-on-ones? And as a leader, what would you like to do when you sit down with that employee? I mean, that's where we talked about expectations, and I believe that there would really help sometimes too. But I know in certain fields, it's not always possible. But I believe 5 minutes is not much. Well, 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I think too, right? So depending on the organization, if this is an office setting and I got 5 people, then I'm going to talk to a person a day, right? But if this is a large manufacturing, we got 200 people roaming through it, and then that becomes a different opportunity, right? So I think depending on the setting, but at the end of the day, all right, I think Peter Drucker's coaching by walking around. It doesn't have to be a let's go to my office, let's sit down, let me pull up my calendar, let me schedule this, right? That might work very well in a different setting, but hypothetically for the larger organizations, it could be something as, you know, I as a leader have 20 people that report to me. My goal is by the end of the week, I want to make sure that I've spoken to each one of them. I've heard their concerns, and I've told them some sort of follow up with them, and I've written them down, right? So you could. I think it's extremely important versus simply leaving them out there on their own to kind of ponder and figure out what it is that we're heading to, or who's going to take care of my issues, right? So I think it might not be one of those that we're going to be everybody, all 20 people are going to come to the office all day long, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to sit and talk. Right. It could be one of those that I always have some sort of notebook with you, and as you're walking up and down, you talk to the first person. Hey, how you doing? How's your weekend? Anything I can do for you? Do you have the right tools? Do you have the right resources? Any things that are roadblocking? Any ideas that you want to share with me? And then you just listen, right?
That's my next part.
If you do that consistently, through the time, eventually that one individual on your roster that never says anything to you, right? They'll come back and say, you know what? I don't really have anything, but I appreciate you. Or, yes, I do have something. This is the first time I come here and I don't have this and I don't have that. And nobody cares. Okay, well, let me follow up with you. Let me make sure that next time I come see you, I don't just ask the same questions and say, listen, but my goal next time when I come in and follow up is to provide you those answers to what you had gotten, or if it was something that you were missing, a tool, here it is to keep you going. So you can still achieve that, Dave, that one-on-one, if you will, simply by you going out to them versus them coming out to you.
That's what I like there. One thing that you said, which I like, I found these 12 wake-up calls. It's called Every Leader Needs to Hear. It says, these are very brief things when it says, if your team's failing, look in the mirror, you're the problem. And I read those little things like that. And I'm like, if your team's failing, as a leader, again, you just said it, listening. That was one of my, I learned that a couple of years ago in detail. Like I literally have to stop and I listen. And what I mean by that is I don't come out with a solution right off the bat. I try to think about it first, because so many people have so many different opinions. It's okay not to say anything right away, because I've learned I've jumped the gun too fast just to please somebody or not. But I mean, do you feel that at all?
100%. I cannot tell you, right? Obviously, especially in this fast-paced world that we live now, right? An email comes through, a project is taking place, executed right now. It needs to happen yesterday, right? So you get those like that. A text comes in, we're having to switch directions on the fly as leaders.
Right.
And I think where I've created awareness myself is, how am I communicating it and how is my message being received?
Right.
That was something that, again, my title below says developing leader. I have to develop continuously on that. It's not something that you can just check and say, you know what? I know how to communicate. I know to listen. I did that 2 months ago. I took a class. Check. I'm done. I got my certificate on the wall. I'm going to move on. No. Yep. It is a continuous exercise that you have to do. So when it comes to listening, oftentimes we'll get an email. Here's what the project's going to be. We go out and we say to 20 people. And there's 20 minds and 40 ears that just heard that message. And each one of those minds and ears could easily interpret that message through their own filter and their own perception. Yep. So what's very important for me is, as I convey that message, is to go and do those follow-ups and see how my message was received.
How it was received. Because if they listen
because if I say, hey, we need to go through and do this, and somebody heard it as, yep, I got it, we're going to do that. Now, I can be upset at the people for going the wrong direction. It could be the way that I communicated. It could be that I wasn't clear enough, right? So as a leader, I think creating awareness on your communication style and that active listening, I think, is crucial in making sure that that communication and that connection happens within that relationship. Or if not, you're going to continuously go over and say, I keep saying the same thing over and over. Why don't they get it? Well, the reason because they don't get it is because the way I'm saying the same thing over and over is not clear enough. So pulling that mirror in front of me, I have to work on it.
And that's perfect the way you said that. Jessica says that's building great leadership. Unfortunately, this happens very infrequently. Yeah, I mean it does. This here, I like this one here. As simple as it is, if your team's afraid to speak up, you've already failed as a leader. And I read that. Is that because of the way you think your leadership style is? Do you think some people feel that way? The style of how Dennis does this, the way Dave does it, the way you handle it. Because if you're a negative person, if you jump, again, I call it evolve. And I've learned, and not like you said, listen, if they're afraid to come up to you,
Yep.
There's something wrong. There is something wrong with that.
100%. And that's called the it's my way or the highway kind of leadership, Dave.
Right.
Right. And it is effective. You can get stuff done.
Yeah.
Right. But when you're continuously telling people what to do, when you're continuously going through and bringing stuff up, right, and then when those ideas come about, you shut them down.
Right.
That individual is going to come up once. If you block them, or if you're talking more than they are, they're going to go back. They're going to bring another idea. If nothing is happening, then they're going to stop coming to you. They're going to stop coming and bringing those ideas because you've not created that environment to where their ideas are valued. You've not created that safe environment to where they come in and challenge something that you said. Because it is the my way or the highway line of leadership. Now, when stuff goes wrong, guess who's gonna suffer from it? Well, it's going to be those people, right? Because nobody they might see that something's going down and something's happening wrong here, but they're not going to say anything because the last 2 times that they tried, you shut them down.
You shut them down. They're gonna, and I think too. That speaks volume because then they talk to those employees. Don't go to him. He's not going to listen to you. And I feel that's wrong there. I feel they shouldn't have to feel like that way. Now, I've learned already, listen, when somebody tells me something, listen, I'll give you some feedback, but at the end of the day, if you're my manager, I got to do what you say.
Yep.
But there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, what about this? Because that, again, I pause and I'll either write it down and I'll think about it throughout the day. I'll be like, damn, maybe that's right. And there's nothing wrong with a leader for me to go back out to that employee and say, you know what, after thinking about it, you're right. I don't think you should be embarrassed as a leader to be able to go back and apologize. That's me.
Yeah, and I think, Dave, it's at the end of the day, right? As a leader, you ought to be able to empower and bring your people along.
There,
right?
If
you're having to constantly be the sole decision maker, if you're having to constantly be there and tell people what to do, if a decision cannot be done because you're not there, if a decision cannot be taking place because you have not been debriefed or you have not given your input, then you've created this culture to where people are always going to, maybe they'd be there, but they're always going to look up for you to tell them what to do. They're the ones that might be doing the job day in and day out. They maybe came from another organization that was maybe 10 steps ahead of yours, and they might have a few tricks under their sleeve that they can share to help improve your processes. But if you haven't created that environment to where they can raise their hand and say, why is it that we're doing what we're doing? Well, here's why we're doing it. Now that we know the why, here's one way to do it. Does anybody have any other ideas that they can bring to the table so that we can make this better? Nope. All right. Well, let's go to it. Right now, again, as leaders, at times we ought to be making those quick decisions and moving forth, right? And so not every decision is going to require, hey, let's gather everybody and do it. But if you make that whenever you can, if you go in and hit the floor and ask people to be part of that process versus just making all the decisions behind a computer in a PowerPoint presentation and not involving not bringing all the stakeholders to the table, I think you're going to find that environment that you're saying, right? So where people don't want to come up, they don't want to challenge, they don't want to bring anything up because that platform was never given to them. Or maybe that one time when they raised their hand and they wanted to challenge a process, right? That they maybe saw something that could have gone astray and they raised their hand. Maybe their hand was smacked and they're like, well, I'm never going to do that again. That's the last time I stick my neck up there, right? And when you create that environment, then you're just going to sit there and you're going to be having to answer all the questions yourself.
I like that because I just don't want I wouldn't want anybody to be afraid not to come up and say anything, and I always say by saying thank you, hey, the reason we can't do this is because, try to give that reason back, and maybe they'll think the same thing. Maybe they'll be like, wow, maybe they're right. Um, I wanted to talk to you about teamwork, and as a leader, how that can affect even like your retention. How do you, if you had to put it straight, how do you teach people to work with teamwork? Like, I believe in exercises. There's different things that you can do as to work as a team. But I mean, to promote teamwork in the workplace, that seems like a really smart thing to do, because being by yourself, if you need 2 or 3 people, somebody's not pulling their weight.
Yeah.
But I really think that comes down to a lot of it with teamwork.
I think, Dave, the years of experience in this supply chain world for me have kind of have heightened, if you will, the importance of every link within that chain has to be connected in order for
Right.
those goods to flow. If not, it's going to be harder, right? So I take that same analogy and put that over into any organization, any industry, anything that you might have, right? How do you promote teamwork? And I think, again, it goes back to people understanding their role and their expectation and who their internal and external customer is. Right. So for example, if you were that receptionist that you first see going into an office, right, that individual right there, she's a sole contributor, right? He or she might not be part of a team, right? They're just sitting there at the desk. But understanding that their internal and external customer, who do they impact? What is their job and why are they there for? Well, they impact the order entry department.
Right.
The order entry department that enters the order is going to impact the receiver. The receiver is going to impact this person. So I think when we take our time, or a couple workshops that I've done, right? So when we take our down and break those silos and bring the teams together and say, hey, here we are as teams. This 7 teams make up this organization. The goal for this organization is to provide excellent customer service. Do we all agree? Yes, we do. And we are achieving excellent customer service. And the reason how we're achieving this customer service is by this department is working together. So if these departments don't work together, you can do really well at that front desk. But if those orders aren't coming in timely, if those orders aren't coming in accurately, if they're not being picked timely, shipped when needed, how they're needed, and sent to the correct addresses, that great job that receptionist did up front means nothing. So I think from a teamwork is giving people the why, giving them the purpose, and letting them know the role that they play into that chain. And then as a leader, you kind of step back and say, all right, where are our opportunities? What chain needs to be strengthened, right? Which one do I need to be strengthening? Which one do I come through to make sure that we can move that good or that service from one end to the other?
That makes sense. I wanted to touch back on something I think I changed the subject on you there, but about the 5 levels of leadership, sir, I think we hit 2, if I'm not mistaken. There's a couple more that I wanted you to bring up on.
No, absolutely. So the first one, right? Somebody gives you a title, you're becoming a leader, you're a manager, right? People are following you because they have to. You have no influence on those people, you have nothing. As you quickly realize that, okay, I'm thankful that the organization gave me this title, but now I need some tools and resources to move on. That's when you move on to that level 2, right? So you move from position to level 2, which is permission. The level 2, permission, right? Now people are following you because they want to, right? At this level, you have spent some time getting to know the people. You've built some relationships with them, and they're giving you the permission, right, to follow them. They're next to you. They're wanting to follow you now. Because they like Dave, they know Dave, and they come through. Now, we're all in this industry or whatever service, whatever. We got to get results. At the end of the day, I can run we're not running a daycare, right? So where everybody's happy, we're through. We got to get some results. So the third level is production. Right? Here, people follow you not only because they want to, but because of what you've been able to do for the organization, right? You've produced, you've given results, you've met the KPIs, you've provided that excellent customer service, you've met your sales quota. So people are like, you know what? I want to work with Dave because Dave can yield results, right? That's the team I want to be on. I want to be on that. So that's your third level of leadership. You move on from that title. You got to know the people. Now I'm producing.
Love
The
it.
next one now is people development. So at this level, not only am I producing results, right? But if you look at that teamwork that we talked about, those change, I'm stepping back as a leader and I'm saying, okay, people are following me here now, not because of what I've done for them, but what I've done. I'm sorry, not because of what I've just done for the organization, but because of what I've done for them.
Okay.
Right? The first one, I did a lot for the organization. I got the results. On the people development, somebody follows me because of what I did for them. Not only am I getting results, but they saw something in me, Dave. They gave me tools, they gave me resources, they gave me projects, they challenged me. And because of that, I'm now a manager. I'm now a supervisor, right? So I'm
Right.
producing leaders now at this point. So that level 4, people will follow you because of what you've done for them.
What you done for them.
And then level 5, it's people follow you because of who you are and you represent. That's the pinnacle, right? That's when
Right.
you know that there's that individual in your organization, right? Where everybody, all the names kind of go through. They're like, hey, that person. They're so respected. They've produced so many other leaders. They've been through every challenge. They've done all the projects. They
Right.
know the people. They can walk from one building to another and they know everybody. That's the pinnacle. Right? So you've produced others because of that individual. There's other leaders that are flowing out there that are creating other leaders. So that's your 5th level, is your pinnacle. So position, permission, production. You got your people developer, and then you got your pinnacle.
I love that. That's the kind of stuff I like. I got one more thing for you. God, we're going on almost 50 minutes. That's nice. Is a lot of leaders, some companies prior that I've been to, and even myself, I've learned, is about when other managers are talking about other managers, supervisors talking about managers upper. That will bite you so hard sometimes, because I feel like if sometimes people, if you think you can trust, where it comes down to trust, but that gets back to all the other people, and it just gets around. And I see that a big mistake of leaders of just listen. The way I look at it anymore is I don't want to say anything unless you're in front of me. I mean, that's a hard pill.
So Dave, the toughest thing that you can do, or the worst thing that you can do for somebody, is to talk about people versus talking to people.
I like that.
I'll leave it with that, right? So if you got something to say about somebody and you've not made them aware so that they can improve and at least be aware of it, then don't say it. Because if you and I are talking about somebody that has a fault or has something going on or whatever, and we haven't done, then we're gossiping, right? So that's,
right.
Again, that's a sign of maturity. That's a sign of creating awareness of a leader, right? We've all done it. I've been there.
Yeah.
But as I see that, then I step back and I say, you know what? What a shame of me. I noticed this, right? It's kind of like seeing that individual walking into a conference room, right? And their zippers down.
Right.
So now you're looking at the person right next to it and you're like, damn, did you see that? His zipper's down.
Yeah. That's
right.
Funny. Yeah.
So you're kind of talking to this individual, but there's the other person sitting right in front of you. He has no clue. So you're talking about him to the person right next to you versus going in and going through. So I've been through those situations before.
Yeah.
And now I at least trying to pause and say, okay, hold on a second. I think I need to, this is going to be a tough conversation, but I got to go in and knock on that person's shoulder and say, hey, FYI, your zipper's down.
Right. And that makes total sense, because these are just things I love talking to you about, because if you haven't been through them, I call it evolved, the way I look at things, because you just learn. I think as you get older, as you just learn so much, these things, when I look at a younger supervisor and I hear this, I'm like, oh, wow, I've been there. But let me tell you what I did and what I did wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong with telling another person that, say, listen, I've heard you talking about other people, other employees. Tone it down, because it's going to come back to you when you're in that meeting and they call you out on that. Well, Dave said this to this. It comes back, and as a leader, that really, really can affect you. I've seen it.
Yep.
On that part. But Dennis, I want to thank you again. We're going to be doing part 2, because I'll tell you what, like I tell everybody, I think I got so many things to talk to you about, and I think everything we went over tonight it's a really great topic. But I want you to give you a minute again and tell me what you do. Tell me about yourself and what LGI Consulting, and we're going to definitely have part 2.
No, I appreciate it, Dave. And this was good conversation. So first off, I think, again, I refer to myself as a developing leader.
I like that.
And I think I'll refer to myself until forever, right? I'm a
Right.
lifelong learner, right? So that's where that comes in. I think the moment that you kind of think that you know everything and you close your mind, I think is the moment where you start going downhill. So
Right.
I think as long as somebody somewhere is teaching you something every single day. So I think the ability to be able to create awareness and figure out on what it is that you want to improve on. Your organization should have some sort of feedback loops, some sort of reviews and so forth that you can kind of go through. Uh, at LGI, obviously we do one-on-one coachings. We do our sole goal is to identify where is it that you are and where is it that you want to be.
Want
And
to
then
be.
we come through and help you support you within that middle gap through that journey to get you there. So we provide some tools, resources, training, and at the same time, be able to get you where you want to be. So whether at an individual basis or an organization basis, but at the end of the day, I think leading yourself first is going to be the most critical thing that you can do before you lead others.
I love it.
And there's a lot of great resources out there, right? Podcasts, books, and on once you identify, right? So whether it's going through a 360 review of yourself or whatever it is that you want to improve on, there's a lot of great resources that you can get your hands out there.
I was going to say for you to keep yourself updated on a lot of this stuff.
Yep.
I mean, you have to learn. You're going to have to get that information from somewhere if you're going to be. You're going after and telling these people what they should do, but again, like you said, you lead by example.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
what you can do. So, but we're definitely going to have part two. I'm going to enjoy to have you back, and I want to thank you for taking the time. And I'm going to talk to you right after this video. All right. Have a great night, Dennis.
Yes, sir. Likewise. Take care.